very warm welcome to this MTSS Vlogcast Series. I'm Lisa Collins, I'm one of the co-founders of MTSS, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Deep Cambay, who is the founder of Regenerating Business. Today we're going to take a much deeper dive on how you get started on that sustainability journey. So Deep, coming over to you, this is getting into the real nitty-gritty of sustainability now. What are the first steps that you recommend in terms of organisations take to evaluate the social, environmental impacts of products, services and solutions and operations?
Yeah, and I think that's still the main question for a lot of businesses who don't have specific resource in their business at the moment and who are at the very beginning going, well, we know we need to do this, but we don't know, we don't know how well we're doing. We don't really know where to start. We don't really know where to look. And, I've mentioned briefly and I've touched upon two different frameworks that are especially valuable, I think, to smaller mid-market companies to get started, especially in a more nimble, lean way. And I want to kind of really do a bit more of a deep dive focus into B Corp, and B Corp is a really good framework because it actually looks at a business's value chain in a holistic way. So it's not just focusing on carbon, it's not just focusing on your product, it's not just focusing on your people, it's actually looking at an operation as a whole and looks to understand how you're performing with the environmental, social impacts it has on different stakeholders around your business or who are directly influenced by your business. The 5 key ones are, your workers, your supply chain and wider community, your customers. It also includes the environment and it also includes the governance of all of those things. So that's how, it kind of assesses across 5 areas. And it's really important to understand that what B Corp does is evaluates your current performance and it identifies where your gaps are. And it's a great way to be able to say, okay, well, we now know what we're measuring against. We now know where our big gaps are. We can now build a strategy kind of in line with our business. We can focus on particular areas that is relevant to us, that is material to us, and take that first step into assessing and improving.
B Corp's a framework.
Yes.
It's an international framework. But is it known as other things?
Yeah, I mean, B Corp is a framework that assesses a business's environmental and social standards, but it's not to be looked at in isolation. So I think a really good example to showcase this is a production studio in London called the Garden Studios, and they're an interesting B Corp because they have looked and assessed their business from that framework. But what they haven't done is done it in isolation. So it's assessing, for example, their climate impact on climate, and they've done lots of work with the Albert certification. So it's inclusive of that. So B Corp will acknowledge the third-party certification of the work that they've already done, incorporating into that performance. So it's acknowledging the certifications, the work, and everything that's being done in a business holistically, not excluding people and things like that. So that's kind of how I would describe it.
And the other framework, Future Fit?
Yes, Future Fit is really interesting framework, and that provides, so there's 2 benefits. So B Corp, what it has is it has the governance piece where B Corp is verified by third party. Now what Future Fit brings in terms of its strengths are that it provides a quantitative approach and be able to assess your business practices against ecological limitations as well as the social foundation. So it can provide you a more robust approach to assessing impacts, whereas B Corp has a more general way of assessing impacts but has the strength of accountability and governance. So, I would recommend bringing both of those frameworks together and being able to assess them together. However, some choose to do it separately, which is absolutely fine. It depends on, what suits the business better.
Okay, so you've chosen the framework that you're going to follow,
Yes.
and you've identified those key focus areas. How does an organisation make the decision on how they're going to set their targets and goals?
Great question. So with B Corp, there is a certain standard you have to get to be able to certify externally that you're a B Corp organisation. So if you chose to go down that route, you have to get a minimum of 80 points across your assessment. Now, impacts are scored and weighted separately depending on the significant impacts, material impacts across your value chain. Once you hit 80, you can then go through a verification process where someone from B Lab, who manages the standards, then assesses your assessment. Will do things like interviews. You need to provide evidence, etc., to verify all of your answers. And once they are satisfied with that, you can then look at, we are a B Corp organisation. Now, something like that will then be able to provide a baseline of going, okay, we know we're good here, we know we're good with retaining talent, because what we've done is we've put loads of initiatives in place to make sure that our employees are happy and they're in line with our values, etc. We are working and performing, getting closer and closer to our net zero target. We put loads of stuff in place, etc. We know where our gaps are. And then when you're looking at those gaps, and when you are working with your leadership team, for example, and you are looking at, okay, these are our business objectives and targets, how are our gaps going to impact those business targets, whatever they may be? What are the risks? What are the risks and what are the opportunities for growth and innovation? So we're looking at it from that perspective, and we also want to align it with the brand purpose. What is the wider purpose of the brand, values, etc. So it's being able to look at things from a holistic point of view, and then being able to build that strategy, identify those KPIs to be able to then continually measure performance and have that continuous improvement ethos across your organisation.
Yeah, and that sustainability journey internal to your organisation isn't just on one person's shoulders. It affects everybody, doesn't it? So what advice do you give there? Is there training that you can give your team members? Absolutely,
and I've got this belief system, and I don't know if everyone will agree with me, but I believe that everybody is a sustainability expert, professional. Everybody's got value to bring, no matter what role they play. They could be the cleaner that comes in part-time, they could be someone on the shop floor, they could be an assistant, they could be a CEO, they could be a supplier. It could be absolutely anyone that has an impact on that business, that can come with their skill set, their knowledge, all of their experience, and be able to identify ways to make things more efficient, to make things more inclusive, to utilise what they already have, and innovate and come together, create ideas, be collaborative, and be able to create some incredible ways or different ways of working. So I think anybody can do it. And I think the whole governance aspect is really important. So it's building the structure to enable decision makers to be in line with what they've already committed to. So it's, making sure that there's responsibilities that are stemming from the top, and they trickle down into all areas of your operations. And what you'll find, more and more businesses are starting to create executive committees coming together that feed into the board to be able to kind of bring all the different elements of E, S and G that's going on across the business, being able to feed in that performance. Because anybody who hires a sustainability professional full-time in their business, their role is essentially a facilitator. So they are connecting the dots, they are engaging, bringing people together, educating them, and being able to build that story in line with the brand to strengthen those messages and to encourage that activity and action towards their overarching goal and purpose.
Yeah, so anybody within the organisation, no matter what their role, should be embracing the sustainability agenda that has been set.
Absolutely, and anyone can get involved when they want to be.
And I guess finally, and maybe related to that, what challenges have you seen with organisations that start on their sustainability journeys, and what have they done to overcome those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the use of frameworks. So, there are schools of thought going, oh, we become a B Corp, great, we've done everything, we can be seen as a great sustainable company, but actually it's a misconception. It's not a, let's just stick a badge on it and we're all okay, because it's constantly evolving. Your external environment is constantly evolving. The geopolitical state of the world is changing. Supply chains are so fragile. We now know, that the impact of ESG on supply chains, having to change and innovate the way that you do things. So it's actually the mindset of that continuous improvement. So there is no one thing, fix it and we'll be okay and we can cover everything up. Actually, no, that's not the case. I think if you can embrace it, knowing that it's an evolving journey, there's no end point. The end point's always going to change because our world is constantly changing. I think that's what's important, and it's being able to connect it in with the meaning. What does it mean for you and your role in the world? What does it mean for you and your purpose in the organisation? It's, storytelling is really powerful. If you can connect it into an engaging story and understand the big why, then you can get lots of people on board to be able to create some quite incredible things like innovation and efficiencies, and being able to work towards a more common goal from a business. And people will want to stay with you longer because they just think, well, we're part of something bigger than us. Absolutely. It means something to us.
Absolutely. And that's the very, very topic for our next episode. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Deep, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, our very next episode will be looking at how purpose-led organisations do seem to be attracting the best of talent. So join us next time to see how you can be a part of that. Thanks for joining us today.